Hey guys, what is up? This is Jack, and today I'll bring you guys a Kerbal space program video regarding my new airship I'm calling Polychris. I'm not very good at names, but I really like how it's looking. It's really working well, and I just love flying this thing. So I just took off that little attachment. That's the dead weight for when I take it up into orbit, just to show its payload capabilities. That's another payload I just attached there that you could take some extra Kerbals into orbit. You can switch it out with anything that's under 5 tons, so you could really do a lot with this craft, and you could even make it to where it's a completely reusable system, and you sort of just hover over it and land on the new payload and take it up into orbit. So there's a lot of options with the way I made this craft. The nose cone with the fairing has pretty much the same thing as what I just pulled off, just a little bit more liquid fuel. It's there in order to make the SSTO more efficient, less drag. So now I'm going to be putting an 18-ton little dead weight on there so it can demonstrate its Skycrane capabilities. It can carry 20 tons, but at that point you're just going to be barely floating off the runway. So yeah, it can carry more obviously when it's not fully fueled, but I'm doing this demonstration while it's fully fueled. So as you can see, with 18 tons it barely takes off, and I'll just fly it over to the VAB to demonstrate that it's possible. You see I'm using RCS right now, and if you push 5 it disables and enables those burner engines, which are the liquid fuel eating RCS engines, and they are there to give you a lot more stability, especially when they're there for when you don't have a lot of control input because you're going so slow, so you don't have to rely completely on the vectoring angle of the engines. And so yeah, I'm carrying it over here, and you can land it on there. You could do this without RCS, but it makes it a little bit less stable and kind of a little bit harder to control, but it's possible. So I'm just going to set it down here. It handles pretty nicely. So yeah, now that I've landed, I'm going to detach, and I'll show you guys its flying capabilities. I'm just going to push 1 and 2, which are the action groups, to start both engines. I'll talk about the action groups now, actually. The action groups go from 1, which starts the aerospike engines, which I guess would be the primary engines because they're the most fuel efficient liquid burning engines, and 2 starts the Rapier engines, which has both modes, and 3 toggles those modes. And so once you get around 150, I would be able to completely rely 150 meters per second. I'd be able to rely completely on the air breathing engines. They produce enough thrust to maintain your speed, but I wouldn't let it get below 100 like I'm doing right now, because you can see I'm slowly falling. And if you do, you want to pitch your nose down slightly bit and gain speed and then pull up. Otherwise you're just going to keep stalling out and keep giving more drag to it while you're trying to pull up. So you want to keep your nose pointed prograde until you build up at least 150 meters per second, and then you start pulling out. Otherwise you're going to crash into the ground. So now I'm going to show you a demonstration of landing with, I guess, half its fuel, half its weight. It is kind of hard without parachutes, but I'll be demonstrating all these landings without parachutes because, well, parachutes make it 100% easier. So you just kind of have to pitch up until you stall out, and you're going to have to cut the throttle to stall out, obviously. But that's how you get into the vertical mode. When you're lower on fuel, you can actually shift your fuel load, your weight, your center of mass closer to the engines, closer to the back, which makes your center of gravity a lot closer to the center of lift, which will give you more maneuverability. So you could basically fly this thing like it's like a supersonic stunt plane jet thing, and you kind of have to flip up and get into the vertical mode, but it won't waste as much fuel. So that's a good thing. Another thing is, when you're descending, you don't want to let your speed get above 35. Because if you do, you're going to start flipping around and going in the direction your nose is pointed, and you don't want that. You'll be crashing into the ground. So yeah, these landing legs work pretty well. Since this post-commentary, I know that I kind of modified it, and now you can actually withstand a 25 meter per second directly vertical drop, which is pretty crazy. And when you look at it, the way the wing and the metal strut flexes, it looks like it's a legitimate landing gear, which is pretty cool. See, I'm walking around here. The ladder extends just perfectly to the right height for Kerbals not to have to jump. And I think the height above the ground is pretty good. It allows you to add cargo and come down and land on the cargo. Those Rapier engines might get in the way, so you want to come down completely on top of it, but they also might help guide it towards the docking port. I don't know, I haven't tested that. But you just climb right up and get back inside. And once you're low enough on fuel, on oxidizer, you've burnt most of your oxidizer and most of your liquid fuel, you can actually rely completely on your air-breathing engines to provide enough thrust to at least hover. And when you're really close to fuel, you can, or really close to empty on fuel, you can just completely rely on the Rapier engines, the air-breathing engines. So right now I'm just going to be tapping 1 to give me a little boost of thrust, which will allow me to kind of hop into the air. And I think I'll go land back on the VAB. In vertical mode, I wouldn't let my horizontal velocity get above 25 meters per second just to be safe, because you will start tipping over and you won't be able to recover it. It gets past the tipping point. So I'm just going to land here. Okay, so I'm nearing the hover weight where air-breathing engines can completely rely on thrust. It's sort of right at the balance, and I can land pretty much anywhere. So yeah, it's working out pretty good. I'm just gonna give a little boost with by pressing 1, and that allows me to take off and gain some altitude. See, I'm hovering more or less with the air-breathing engines. So I think now I'm going to demonstrate the SSTO capabilities of this craft. This is a 5-ton deadweight. I'll be showing you that now. It's exactly 5.143 tons, and none of the fuel inside there is going to be used to achieve an orbit. See, it's 83.41 right there. Now it's 78.26. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you have SAS enabled in the push 1 and 2 at the same time. As soon as you start climbing, you want to start pitching over, and I'd pitch to about 40 degrees and just let it sit there. It's going to fall automatically, but just let it do that. Let the SAS sort of rotate your craft into a good angle. And so now that once you're at 100 meters per second, you want to push 3 and switch over to the air-breathing engines. And then once you get to 130 meters per second, you want to turn off the primary aerospike engines and just rely only on the air-breathing engines to let you build up speed. Now that is going to be a very close sort of thing, so you want to be very careful on your control inputs, be very gentle, and try to build up as much speed as possible before you actually start pulling up on anything. Just let the plane fly itself, which can be kind of hard. So now I'm going to speed up the footage and make this not take as long. So the next thing you're going to want to do is click that fuel icon so you can monitor your fuel output, and just kind of sit here and build up speed until you're around 330 meters per second. Once you reach that, you're going to want to turn on your turbo spike engines and slowly, very gently start pitching up to about 30 degrees. And just keep at that attitude and allow your turbo spike and air breathing engines to help you maintain your speed. You're going to want to be still increasing speed, so this burn I did, this particular one, wasn't nearly as efficient as it could have been. So once you reach about 8,500 meters per second, you're going to start slowly pitching your nose down, turn off your aerospike engine, and let your air-breathing engines build up speed until your fuel gets about even. Your liquid fuel and oxidizer gets about even. Then you're going to turn back on your turbo spike engines and allow that to build your speed up until you're reaching the speed you want to be, which is about here 800, 900 meters per second. You're going to be wanting to reach 15,000 meters in altitude by then, and then you're going to slowly start pitching up to make your apiosis increase a little bit faster, so you're getting out of the atmosphere, getting out of the drag. You're also going to want to turn off your air breathing engines and make sure to close your air intakes, which reduces your drag by a lot, surprisingly. Once your apiosis gets around 50 kilometers, you're going to want to start aiming towards prograde and just keep burning that until you get your apiosis to a 70 kilometer mark. So it's going to be burning for a while, and your goal is to make it to where you have about even liquid fuel and oxidizer. And you can see it's a little bit off right now because that payload has a little bit of liquid fuel. So you're going to want to set up your maneuver mode at the apiosis once you reach 70 kilometers, and then do your burn, your typical orbital insertion burn. which in this case was pretty low because of my method of getting into orbit. So now I'm in a stable orbit. I can extend my solar panels by pushing 9. It also opens up the docking port on the front. Now that we're in an orbit, we can decouple the payload and we can start transferring fuel into one particular tank, which will allow you to change out your fuel more easily and more quickly while you're in the atmosphere and flying. And the reason why you want to actually change your center of mass via changing which tanks have fuel is to make the craft more stable while you're re-entering. So you're going to want to transfer all your fuel for re-entry to the very front of the craft. So now I'm going to be showing you where you want to put your retrograde burn maneuver in order to get back into the atmosphere of Kerbal. So you want to do it right in that peninsula area, and I warp to the daytime so you can see it more easily. And you want your maneuver node to be 40 meters per second. In this case, I made it 40.8, which actually turns out not to be as good. And it's actually, the maneuver node is almost exactly on the opposite side of the KSC, just for reference if you want to find it. Okay, so now I'm going to be doing my retrograde burn and trying to make it to the KSC. My periapsis is around 28 right now. It probably would have been better if I had done it at 30 kilometers, because that means I wouldn't have had to use more fuel to make sure I made it there. So you don't want to turn prograde and keep your nose prograde so you don't tip over in the atmosphere, even though we moved the center mass more forwards. It's still risky to kind of pull up and do anything while you're re-entering at that speed. You're also going to want to pull in your solar panels so they don't rip off. And I'll give a mod list of that particle effect you just saw. It really makes re-entry look nice. I should have recorded a little bit more of it. But as you can see, my trajectory is not going to reach the KC, so I'm going to start pulling up very, very gently, very carefully. I'll start pulling up. Make sure you have your RCS on and your atmospheric your atmospheric RCS thrusters on, the burner engines, so that it gives it a little bit more control. And make sure you're in a level, steady flight. You can turn on your air breathing engines and begin adding thrust. Just make sure you have your intakes open. And so I'm just kind of gliding here. I'm turning on my engines to build up a little bit more speed and sort of hop over the mountains. This will allow me to save more fuel because I'm in a higher bit of the atmosphere with less drag, and I'm also going pretty fast. So here, I couldn't really see the KSC very well, but I found it, and now I'm going to start trying to glide and maintain speed. I think my best glide ratio with this craft is about -20 degrees, which isn't very good at all. You're kind of just falling at that point, but it's maintaining your speed, and it's just continuing to give you control of the craft. So I'm just kind of maintaining my speed, my same glide path. You want to not let your KSC, your point of interest, be above you or below you. You want it to just stay on the same spot in the horizon. Now I'm going to be transferring all my fuel to the very back to move my center of mass to the very back, which allows me to have a lot more control over the craft. And you're going to need to do this for the landing. So this landing is going to be without parachutes, and slowing it down now. You can see I'm trying to get up to about 150 meters per second, and once you do that, you pull up as hard as you can right about here, and you're going to want to turn on your RCS and click the node to radial out node so you can be pointing up, so it's constantly trying to point up. Just sort of hover here and slowly start descending. Make sure you're aiming for the helipad. Here I turned off the RCS for some reason, I don't know why, but yeah, you can just sort of land here. I used my aerospike engines just to slow my speed a little bit, used the last of my oxidizer, and made a nice little touchdown here. So you could do that without having to do that. You could land on the runway, you could land on the you could land anywhere if you had more fuel, but I was so low on fuel I kind of want to just land quickly. I could have done it with parachutes, but it's whatever. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. The craft file is in the description below, as well as other mods, and if you want to see more, please like and subscribe for Jebediah Kerman to continue being my pilot. I'll catch you guys next time. Have a good day.